if you actually look at the situation then and think, well, if you wanted to ensure that Napoleon wanted to ensure his right wing was safe, all he had to do was say to Grouchy, I'm going to fight a battle, cover my right wing. Over the last 10 years, myself and a couple of others have actually spent our times going on the archives trying to find new material. Between us all, we have actually brought over 500 new accounts of the Battle of Waterloo into the general domain. Now, when I tell you that the history of it for the last 190 years has been written on about 250 versions, we now have 750, you can imagine the amount of change that has brought to our understanding of the battle. Napoleon, he escapes from Elba. Now, we all think this is actually quite a miraculous escape, really, if you think about it, because not only is the HMS Partridge has rushed off into Livorno with General Campbell, who says he was going over his health. In fact, he was probably actually going there to meet his mistress, but he couldn't tell the king that when Napoleon left while he was away. But also there were 3 French frigates actually patrolling off Elba. So they stayed. But as soon as Partridge went, Napoleon went to France. Now you've got to think, well, these 3 ships going back and forth across a narrow channel there, his chances of getting past it without being seen were virtually nil. So you have to start asking questions as to why he then still went for it. And the answer, I think, comes out from a number of reports. One of the things that happens is that as soon as he comes out of the harbour, his ships spot the Partridge starting to return from Livorno. The Partridge captain actually mistakes Napoleon's ship because it looks directly the same as one of the French frigates. So in fact, it looks very similar, and he mistakenly thinks, so he doesn't go to approach it. But Napoleon's orders were immediately to take his ship alongside the French patrol ships because they would protect them. And another stage further on, when he passes the first and second ships, the 3rd ship also approaches him so close that the captain shouts across to the other ship and has a conversation. Now, any seafaring officer, and I was one for many years, would know a heavily laden cargo ship. He actually sees these ships leaving Elba, they're heavily laden. Apparently even some of the soldiers were lying down the deck trying to hide from him. Now, I think the chances are he probably saw something. He admits later, he admitted later, I thought Napoleon was on there, but he was on his way to Italy, so I let him go. Now, I don't know where he gets his idea of what his job was at that time, but seriously, that wasn't the answer. But at the end of the day, I think it's very clear that Napoleon on that day did not really take much of a chance. He knew that the 3 French captains were already on his side, and he knew he had safe passage as long as he got away from Campbell and the actual Partridge while he was at Livorno. And that's why he sailed then. Now I'll have to paraphrase this very quickly because this is a big one and it would take forever to talk about. But the 52nd, we know at the end of the battle, you have the Guard and you have the 52nd. Who beat the Guard? Now it's been a controversy for 200 years, with obviously the Guards and the 52nd arguing continuously who did it. My honest opinion is that there are 3 attacks to the Guard attack. If you want me to explain that more, you'll have to buy the book, effectively. But the French records as well now tally largely with what I've managed to put together, which is there were 3 separate bits of the attack. It was meant to go off in one, but in fact it went off in stages by mistake. So you have the chasseurs attack first, the Guard face them and actually drive them back. At the same time, just behind them, and to their right, near La Haissante, so a mixture of chasseur and grenadier units attack, the 3 units there. They attack and arrive at the area where the Allied line is starting to break, around the 33rd, the 30th, the Hanoverian units, etc. It's all starting to break up. And at the same sort of time, Cambronne and the chasseurs, etc., and the one grenadier unit that's on that side of the field, say they started marching up the hill in support of the chasseurs who were just being beaten back by the guards. Now, if that works out correctly for everybody, because the guards attack and drive the chasseurs back. The guards then report that they find new French troops attacking them, and they have to go back to the ridge. Well, that ties in perfectly with Cambronne and his troops coming round the side to help them. It also gives a new set of units for the 52nd to have to attack. So I believe both cases, in a sense, is the guards do defeat part of the guard. The 52nd then swing, and what I will say though is that some of the recent histories are saying it was 52nd alone. I can tell you now the records are quite clear, and letters from soldiers who were there. 2 battalions of 95th were with them, the 71st were just behind, and some of the Hanoverians were just behind them. So in fact, it wasn't the 52nd going on their own marching across the field and nobody else stopped them. It was literally a division or more of men moving across the field and actually sweeping it clear. I have said there was a third attack, and I will just drop that in. I believe all the evidence is that Chasse and his Belgians actually defeat that attack and drive it back into Hougoumont, into La Haye-Sainte Wood. Okay? And that is why when the 52nd nearly passed La Haye-Sainte, they say, we noticed formed troops to our left, which is towards La Haye-Sainte. I believe that is Chasse, who has just finished his attack and is now reforming before he marches on. And it seems to tally with that, because there certainly weren't any French units in that area otherwise. Okay, Grouchy. We all know he ends up at Wavre, and he carries on fighting on the 18th, and clearly, as Napoleon said, it's all his fault. He should have come to meet me. He knew he had to keep in touch with him. He knew he had to keep the Prussians out of the way. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with that, because Napoleon arrives at the ridge in front of Mont Saint-Jean on the night of the 18th. He knows that Wellington is standing there. He doesn't know if he'll definitely stand all night, but he hopes he will. So he has an idea he may have a battle the following morning, round about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening of the 17th. He suspects that the Germans have fled and that Grouchy is just pushing them away towards Germany. No threat at all. But if you actually look at the situation then and think, well, if you wanted to ensure that Napoleon wanted to ensure his right wing was safe, all he had to do was say to Grouchy, I'm going to fight a battle, cover my right wing, move just slightly in towards me. You don't need to actually carry on chasing the Prussians back to Germany. You can just move into position or something like that. Any form of message, but that's my big issue. Napoleon doesn't tell Grouchy anything. Grouchy finds out there's a battle when the first cannon goes off. And at 11:30 on the 18th, I believe, even if he turned at that time, probably what Blücher would have done is turn one corps against him to try and actually hold him back. And I think Blücher still would have driven 2 corps at least onto the field of Waterloo. And I honestly don't think at the end of the day it would have made a huge difference to the outcome of the battle. But to blame Grouchy for everything is actually just, I think, sort of closing the door after the horses bolted, in the sense of, if Napoleon had said to him the night before, I am going to actually face battle at this point here, if Wellington stands, then Grouchy, he could have actually either arranged something that he could have come in and actually supported him. That didn't happen because Napoleon didn't say anything. And that's how I think, generally, it's at fault.